Okay, so I said we'd start off by talking about what is the Centre for Research Collections. So we are very much an access point, providing access to the university's unique cultural and heritage collections. And there's a reason we don't necessarily say historic collections, because that includes things right up to the present day. And there are four main types of collections under that banner. We have rare books, primarily books printed before 1900, but also quite a lot of 20th century material. We have archives, and we also have art and musical instruments. Now, the Centre for Research Collections is located on the 6th floor of the main library, and it is accessible by appointment. I'm going to be telling you a little bit about that. Obviously, we've had some changes recently. At the centre, on a day-to-day basis, we're generally providing access to rare books and archives and manuscripts, but I will tell you briefly about how to navigate the art collections and musical instruments. And part of our collection is housed at and on display at St Cecilia's Hall as well. So when we talk about archives, we hold, not surprisingly, we hold the University of Edinburgh's institutional archives, and that can sometimes sound a little bit dry. We have records of students, so at some point in the future, your record will be part of the archives. My record is part of the archives, but thanks to data protection regulations, people are not allowed to access those records whilst we're alive without our permission. But there's also really a lot of people involved in the archives. And of the images we've got here, we have Arthur Conan Doyle's the first page of his medical thesis from 1885. We have photographs from various medical buildings, like the dissecting room here. And then we also have much more personal items. This is a visitor book from the Roslin Institute of Animal Genetics, which is where Dolly the sheep was created. You can go to see Dolly the sheep, the first cloned animal, at the National Museum of Scotland. And we have all of the archives relating to that. And you would expect those archives to be quite heavily scientific based. But actually, this is a really lovely visitor book with photographs and sketches and messages from people that came to visit the scientists working at the centre. We have a number of manuscripts. Here is just a small selection. We have some Raggamala paintings. We have a Book of Hours, a medieval religious manuscript with a very, very slightly stressed looking donkey carrying Mary and Jesus. And then we also have this anatomical manuscript, which is actually from the 19th century on the right hand side. This is just an example of a couple of other manuscript items. So when we say manuscript, we're referring to things that are handwritten. They could be bound or they could be loose leaf paper. We have the letters of Lady Grange from 1734. And we also have this bound manuscript from the Carmichael Watson collection. It's a collection of Scottish folklore, spells, tales, mostly in Gaelic. These are just little snapshots into the collections. We actually have over 420,000 rare books and over 6.5 kilometres of shelving of archive and manuscript material. So in terms of rare books, again, a little taster of what we have. We've got the Edinburgh College of Art rare books, really beautiful graphic books that also tell us a lot about how the Library of Edinburgh College of Art was purchasing books to support design education. We have some extremely rare first folios of Shakespeare. This Romeo and Juliet is from 1599. We have a collection of that we refer to as incunables. Those are the very first, earliest printed books. And we also have collections relating to prominent individuals, often related to the university. So we have this book here from Charles Darwin on the emotions of man and animals. Now, usually when I did these sessions before, the focus was all on coming to the Centre for Research Collections to visit in person. And I'm still going to touch on that because we are still open. You can make appointments to come and view collections with us. But most importantly, you can get in touch with us with any of your inquiries, any of your questions, things you might need, any help with getting started on your research. And the collections are available for anyone at any level in the university. But I came across this really brilliant blog post that I'd encourage you to have a really full read of. And it's by an academic called Claire Bourne. It's just part of her own academic blog. And it looks really detailed at what to think about when you're going to visit special collections. So when you're going to visit a special collections reading room like the Centre for Research Collections, the key things to bear in mind. Aha, yes, I can post it in the chat. So one moment. Go. I'm actually going to pop to this. Here we go. So here we are. This is Claire Bourne's blog post here. And it covers all the really basics, the kind of frequently asked questions that we get with people coming. Everything for how do I find out where things are? How do I request things? Who is allowed access? What are your opening hours? What can I take into your reading room? What can I not take into your reading room? Things like if I need to pop out for a break, can I leave the manuscript I'm looking at on my desk or can I take it out? And what's really interesting is speaking to academics, the rules are slightly different wherever you go. So it's really worth asking these questions. And what's really key in this blog post by Claire Bourne is the focus and her emphasis on the fact that staff are there to help you. And that is very much the case for us. We are here to help you. So I'm the services manager and I have a whole team who are very much there to put you at ease, make you comfortable, and also find the materials that you're looking for and answer your questions, however self-conscious you might feel asking those. So I'd really recommend you to have a good look at that blog post as well. So we'll just pop back to the slides. Excuse me, I'm a little bit rusty at doing these online presentations right now. In fact, we're not going to pop back to the slides. We're going to go straight into having a look at some of the catalogues. So I said that one of the first things that you need to navigate is obviously how to find things in the collections. Not surprisingly, I'm going to recommend that you start with the Centre for Research Collections pages. You'll also find a lot of information on our web pages about what you need to do beforehand, how much notice we need for your appointment, what you can and can't do, and also what sort of health and safety protocols we're following. But if you scroll down that information, that's where you get some of the more exciting bits. So we have an overview of collections and digital images, and we also have search for collections. That will take you to the links of the catalogues that I'm about to discuss. And then we've got a bit of information on a really, really important collection from Charles Lyell that we've recently acquired. But I'm going to start by just taking you through some of these catalogues and giving you a few tips that are very specific to looking at rare books and archives. So if you are a new postgraduate, but you've studied at Edinburgh before, you will hopefully be really, really familiar with DiscoverEd. There's lots of information available on the university web pages and provided by the academic support librarians to search it. But I'm going to give you I'm going to give you one particular example of how to use it to sort of improve how you're finding things. So we are going to do a little check. So we're going to search Wealth of Nations, famous text by Adam Smith. Now, if I'm a researcher, I might only need to see, I could see any copy of Adam Smith Wealth of Nations. It's been republished. There's probably an online version to have a look at some point. There's also lots of supplementary text with it. But I am interested in finding an older copy, maybe a first edition or an early edition of that copy. And although I could probably find a digitized version through Google Books from another library, I would like to see an edition that the University of Edinburgh has, because I know it's got really interesting annotations, and I want to find out about the provenance of that book, how that book came to be in the collections. So at the moment, we have almost 1.7 million results, way too many to be able to browse through. So we're going to use the facets on the left-hand side here. And there's one in the show only column called special collections. And if you click on that, it immediately cuts out all of the electronic resources. It cuts out all of the more modern contemporary publications of it, and it focuses right down to just the copies that are held in the rare book collections. And if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see that some of them are at the CRC, some of them are stored off-site, and there's some at New College Library and one at Moray House Library. So as we're scrolling down, I think I'd quite like to see the 1791 version. So I'm going to use the refined dates here and pop in 1791. I always highlight these because they're quite far down the page on the facets, but when you're looking for rare books in particular, especially specific volumes, they're really, really important. So we'll click refine. There we go. It's bought our copies. So I click on this first one. Here we are. It gives you the information, and it gives you this shelf mark here. Tells you have 3 volumes, and there's actually 2 copies of both sets of volumes. And then further down, you've got some of your bibliographic information. When you're looking for rare books and you're looking at catalogue entries, I'd really, really encourage you to scroll down to make sure that you see these details. This is a very brief description, but one of the things that our rare book cataloguers do is they really investigate the books they're cataloguing. So things that have been catalogued in more recent years are going to have a lot more detail and information in them. So those are some of my suggestions for looking for rare books. And I'm now going to take a moment just to talk to you about the Archives catalogue. So this is the University of Edinburgh's Archives Online, and if you haven't used an Archives catalogue before, they can seem a little bit strange. They are quite different to book catalogues, but that's because of how archives are arranged. So archives are arranged in hierarchies rather than as individual books or individual sequences of books or items. So I'm going to have a little search for the David Lane collection. It's one of our biggest collections. So I'm going to search David Lane collection and just see what comes up with there. So it brings up all sorts of items. It brings up David Lane himself as an individual. I'm going to click on here, the Lane collection. So when you look at the archive catalogue, there's a lot of information on the page, and this is what I mean by it's quite different to looking at a publication catalogue entry. So if we scroll down, you've got scope and contents with descriptive information. You get a lot of information that the archivists are doing. I mentioned that rare book librarians do a lot of research. Archivists are also doing a lot of research. Biographical information and also history of the actual collection itself. And here you get the scope of it, the extent. It's over 72 metres in size. It is a huge collection. If we click expand all, tells you a bit more, tells you when the collection came in, tells you how to contact us. Now, one of the reasons I'm emphasising the size is if you get in touch with us and say, I'd like to come and see the David Lane collection, we will come back to you and say which bits, because it will take you a lifetime to go through the whole collection. So it's absolutely fine to get in touch with us and say, I'd like to see some things in the David Lane collection. This is what I'm interested in, and then we can help you locate what you'd like to see. In the right-hand side, you then have collection organisation, and this is how you can navigate through the collection. If we click on section 1, now I'm going to click on section 2. You'll see in section 2 here, there isn't a drop-down menu here, but instead there are links to PDFs so that you can actually look at the hand lists. And some of these are quite old hand lists. If I click on this one here, You see what I mean? They're often annotated as well. If I close that one, oops, no, that wasn't what I meant to do. Here we go, this is all coming to you live. We'll start that again, Lane collection. There we are. So if we look at section 3, section 4, section 5, you'll see that these have actually got drop down little arrows, and that means you can get more detail. Now keep an eye on this little identifier here. At the moment it says LA, that's the identifier for the collection. If we start to click further into the collection, you'll see that our identifier is now LA.4 in Roman numerals, .1, and then if I click on an individual letter, it's LA.4.1 folios 5 to 6. And if you tell us you want to see that, we can go straight into our store and find it for you. And this is a letter from Walter Scott to David Lane from 1822. And so that shows you some of the ways that you navigate through the collections. Now, I mentioned that obviously we have a focus on rare books and archives, but we also have our the art and musical instrument collections. So on this page here, collections.ed.ac.uk, you can navigate to the art collection and the musical instrument collections. So if I click on art collection, it takes you out here. We can now search through the collection here. So I am going to pop in, who should I put in? David Mickey. So we've got quite a few David Mickeys. I'm trying to see if we've got one that's got an image. Maybe not. Oh, here we go. David Mickey, picture of George Melly. And here it gives you further information. The accession number here, so if you're doing any studies that do relate to the art collection, you're wanting to get in touch with us, we can pass your inquiry on to our curator. This is the most useful number for you to provide us with, because it means we'll be able to know exactly what it is that you're talking about. So there is David Mickey's painting of George Melly. So I'm going to take back and just show you the musical instruments. So the musical instruments have very technical cataloguing information. If I have a look at these instruments here, and I'm going to choose cornet, and here lots of cornets come up, and I'm going to click on this one. So cornet, nominal pitch. So there's a lot of technical information here, all in this information, and there's the accession number at the lower edge. So that's just running you through the different kind of collections and how to navigate them, how to find them. So I'm going to pop back to these slides for a moment. So we've got the links here. One thing I want to really emphasize is not all of the collections are catalogued. So please don't assume that if you're not finding it, that we don't have it. Do get in touch with us, send us an email, and we'd be able to help you. Or you can get in touch with academic support librarians who will also be able to pass on your inquiry. But I've got contact details at the end of the session. So a few quick points. All of the practical information you need about coming to the CRC, making an appointment, is on the home page. But the kind of highlights to bear in mind: you have to register before you come. All material has to be consulted in our reading room. This is not the kind of material that you can take home. And you're only allowed to take in pencils, notebooks, laptops, tablets, cameras. Everything else, we have lockers that we provide you with. And photography of most items is also allowed in the reading room, subject to a few restrictions. And if you're a bit lacking in confidence of how to handle any of these collections when you're in the reading room, we have a really good handling video, but also staff are always there to give you a hand. Quick note on references. So when we were looking at the archives catalogue, I pointed out that Lane reference, LA dot. Our shelf marks and unique references are very diverse. They do not follow Library of Congress. We have a couple of anomalies that are Deweys, but apart from that, anything could be a shelf mark or identifier, and it's really important to write it down exactly how it's shown. If you put an asterisk in the wrong place, you will get a different book. So it's really important to pay a lot of attention to that. Now, the collections at Edinburgh are brilliant and world class. However, we're not necessarily going to have absolutely everything that is relevant for you that you want to look at. So these are some further links to show you how to look for other collections. So we have WorldCat and COPAC, very good for printed materials. National Archives for UK-wide materials. Archives Hub as well. And National Records of Scotland has a register for archives for Scotland. It's particularly useful if you're wanting to access private archives. I was just going to show you very, very briefly the National Archives, because that's one of the most useful, I think, when you're getting started, particularly if you're expecting the materials that you need to be in the UK. So we will just pop over to National Archives here. I just wanted to show you a crucial thing if you're looking for. The search box on the top right, click Search Our Records so that it's not Search Our Website. If I put in Archbishop, search, and here you've got held by National Archives or you've got held by other archives. So you click on there and it will show you archives from elsewhere. So not surprisingly, York Minster, Liverpool Hope University, and if you click on them, it tells you how to contact that organisation as well. So that's a really useful resource to be aware of for archival research. I also wanted to point out that some collections will have embedded catalogue records. Oh, no, that's not the right thing. Sorry, everyone. Let's just get back to this. So we have these references, but also if you're looking for digitized collections in particular, we have digital images of some of our collections. But there are other collections that also have digital images. So Cambridge University has one that they refer to as Cuddle. And then some of the other major collections worldwide, so the Beinecke Library at Yale, when you search their catalogue, you can use the facets to cut down to only see things that have been digitised. You can do the same at Leeds University Special Collections. We're not able to do it ourselves just yet at Edinburgh with our system. We also have subscriptions. Access to these are reliant on you being a student at the University of Edinburgh. That's a huge number of resources and subscriptions that we have to primary sources. So these are digitised collections from elsewhere outside of Edinburgh. And there's also a very useful LibGuide provided by the Academic Support Librarians on how to access and how to use those primary sources.